Dobryuta Dubrovsky, long time no see. Anyway, some of you might recall Francis Fukuyama's end of history thesis from a generation ago that the collapse of socialism demonstrated incontrovertibly that the world is naturally evolving toward the liberal democratic capitalist order as the crowning stage of human development. This dialectic was, of course, a plagiarized inversion of Marx and Hegel, and if the latter's conclusions were to be doubted, there's as much reason not to buy Fukuyama's version either. Of course, there is no predestined end game to human history. There are some who say the game of life has no goal at all, as well as no end. Be that as it may, those promoting the final stage of humanity have a political agenda for doing so. In the late 80s of Glasnost, when Fukuyama coined the phrase, that agenda was the destruction of socialism and the promotion of unregulated, unchained, free market capitalism and a state order subservient to it. Engineering the collapse of socialism by ending the Cold War succeeded, but peace and prosperity have not arisen from the ashes of said failed system, nor can it. Gorbachev's naive opening to the West was the crack in the door the capitalist wolf outside had been hoping for decades. There was no hope of huffing and puffing and blowing the big bad iron curtain down to gobble up the three little pigs inside. The pigs would have to be conned by the wolf in a sheep's business suit into opening the door themselves. Socialism was defined as anything that restricted the untrammeled flow of capital accumulation upward. Social security, public health care, and the Gulag were all conflated by the followers of Friedman, Hayek, and von Mises. Rolling back the social democratic welfare state at home was co-equal with rolling back the iron curtain on the other side. In the latter case, there were four tactics, four crowbars, which the wolf had been leveraging against the little pig's door. First was the promoting of free market capitalism through privatization and linking it up with foreign investment. The domestic equivalent was deregulation of financial markets and lowering environmental standards. Where socialism actually existed, the trashing of the public domain necessitated more radical shock tactics. The second tactic was unilateral disarmament, convincing the pigs that it was in their own self-interest to lay down their weapons first and unbolt the door for the wolf to see they'd done so. Dismantling the pig's fence around their house was also seen as part of the peace process between neighbors, because of course it was only the pigs which were the hostile party having to prove their good intentions to the wolf's satisfaction, much like dismantling the National Labor Relations Board in the United States. The third tactic was a specially constructed, narrowly defined promotion of democracy and human rights. Democracy was to be achieved by free elections, whose goal was surrender of political power and the pigs' sovereignty of their own home. This would mean setting the pigs against each other, backing the candidacy of one of them as an investment, helping him to win, and by doing so gain a financial stake in the pig's house, leaving the others to remain as renters or out in the cold. Human rights was likewise equated with property rights, meaning the loser pigs had no social rights to home and hearth, which the victor pig was obliged to respect, in the words of Chief Justice Roger B. Taney in the Dred Scott decision. This, too, was equal with the rollback of social entitlements for old coots, niggers, illegal greasers, white trash, and other Democrats not good enough to enjoy democracy. The fourth tactic was nationalism, whipping up swinish, selfish chauvinism to get the pigs to secede from each other and divide up their common home. In socialist Europe, though national self-determination was enshrined in state constitutions, the national communities were part of an internationalist system of unions, federations, and interlocking political and economic alliances. These would have to be ruptured if socialism was to be destroyed by encouraging national individualism, just as unions at the domestic workplace were busted, each employee encouraged to stand on his own before the boss and sink or swim based on his own unique capacity to kiss ass and take shit. The Soviet Union and the United States AFL-CIO were identical in the mindset of the Friedmanites. Capitalism was promoted in the Glasnost era as the antidote to socialism, saving the world from its failed system. The irony here is that it was socialism that had saved capitalism after the last Great Depression, subsidizing its survival and comeback and expansion. Like a sick man who thinks he can do away with his pills because he feels better, the sick capitalist wolf ripped out his public sector IV line and thought he could go back to gobbling up little pigs just like before. But while socialism could save capitalism from itself, capitalism can only destroy, first socialism, then itself. Again, by socialism, it's meant not just big government, which is only one form. Socialism means, in essence, human solidarity and mutual aid at all levels, from the interpersonal to the national or even global scale. This solidarity is the living, beating heart of humanity that the capitalist wolf wants to rip out of its chest and chew between bloody, slobbering jaws. Destroying this solidarity, even convincing the pigs that it's oppressive and unjust, is necessary to put their little pink tails out in the cold for the eating in a hierarchical chain of exploitation. But socialism and communism and all that stuff did the same thing. Look at the millions killed by Stalin and Pol Pot and Mao and Castro and Olof Palme and Barack Obama. Well, the thing here is that there's great variance in socialism. It can be a tool for digging a garden or a grave. Capitalism can do the same, except the capitalist parasites infesting the garden consume more and more of the produce and eventually leach its soil as sterile as a grave with no hope of internal recovery. Notice that in pushing capitalism down hungry throats in Europe, the remedy is called an austerity measure, not a prosperity measure, not an opportunity measure. Austerity is the polite banker's word for poverty, that is, poverty for you, which is necessary to keep their markets free, their capital flowing, their money piled high in their vault. You are to pay for their prosperity by your austerity. Your job, your health care, your pension, your access to education, all of it expendable, to be put on a capital basis or else destroyed. Because you are just a little pink pig to them, someone to be thrown out of your foreclosed house and eaten down to your little pig's feet. But capitalism and the market do create solidarity, don't they? Don't they bring community by bringing everyone together to buy, sell, exchange, all that good stuff with the social proprieties necessary to smooth the transactions? The very essence of civility and hence civilization. And the market does break down barriers to solidarity, national exclusiveness, racism, religion. It can do that. Only by creating less overt barriers, by quietly picking your pocket, transferring your wealth into someone else's pocket and making it his own. Your freedom and autonomy are turned against you in a game where one side makes the rules to his advantage because he owns the playing field and you don't, with his corporate logo over the stadium. Just as often, it retains old barriers by putting them on a new basis. Racial domination becomes class domination. The result is the same. Feudal relations of master and servant become that of employer to employee under free contract. Both sides are free to end the contract, but one side retains the right to control the profit thereof. Guess who has the real freedom to choose? Any attempt to assert a human solidarity outside this social contract is legally prescribed, politically marginalized, and, if necessary, repressed with force, because everyone must know and keep its proper place for the market society to function as it should, transferring wealth from the many to the few, ensuring its distribution remains vertical rather than horizontal. That is the working definition of austerity. By the same token, the state subjection of the individual under capitalist freedom becomes the rule of law, made by judges and politicians in debt to the creditor class that funded their free election. Capitalism is based on the ownership of property and the accumulated labor of others, without property right in the products of their labor. These products are turned into liquid form, capital, so it can be kept under the control of those that own. Land, for instance, can have value not in itself as a source of survival, but only as it has market value. That's why the three little pigs have to be foreclosed out of that house lot and their equity liquidated by the financial market. Well, who can that be? Hello? Ludwig von Mises? Hey, why I got you on the line, maybe you can tell me why Austrians are such reactionary assholes. You, Hitler, Engelbert Dollfuss, Kurt Waldheim, Friedrich Hayek, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jörg Haider? What's that? That's because those that have deserve to have because they have, otherwise they couldn't have it? Okay. So your market theory comes down to natural law like genetics. There are those that must have because it's in their blood to have, and those that must be poor. But it's in the blood of the poor to fight poverty. Not if you can convince them that social justice is efficiency, and efficiency must mean poverty for the many and profit for the few. Well, no wonder we're flucked, and not just in Austria. Just wait till January of 2013.